Hello class, this is Demetrius Wilson again, Principles of Management. This is Chapter 6, moving right along as always. Before you know it, the semester will be over. We are now on Chapter 6, Goals and Objectives. If you don't have goals and you don't have objectives, you better get some. Without goals and objectives, organizations as well as individuals sometimes sputter and they become complacent, do not move forward. So our learning objectives, as we always review, demonstrate an understanding of the nature of goals and objectives and their importance to effective management. Learn how our thinking about goals and objectives has evolved, and it has definitely evolved over time. Be able to explain what characterizes good goals and objectives, right? So talk about like SMART goals, them being measurable, being specific. Show an understanding of roles of goals and objectives in an employee performance review, right? You have to know and understand that you have these goals ahead of time. Don't just get someone in a performance review and say, hey, these are your secret goals that I knew and you don't know, but that's what you're being judged on. Map out relationship among economic, social, and environmental goals and objectives, and learn how to set and manage your own goals and objectives. And remember, objectives is that short sprint leading up to the goals, which is a little bit longer of a race, maybe a half marathon. So goals and objectives in the planning, organizing, leading, and controlling framework. As always, we have that just to remind you, because basically this is what management is summed up as: planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. And that's why you see it every single chapter on one of the slides at the very beginning. So what are goals and objectives? Goals are outcome statements that define what an organization is trying to accomplish. This is what we want to do. So for example, increase revenue by 20% annually. So if we're making $100,000 a year, now we want to make $120,000 a year. Our objectives are very precise, time-based, and measurable actions that support the completion of a goal, right? So our objectives support that goal of increasing our revenue by 20%. And for example, open 20 new stores by year end. Well, if we open 20 new stores by year end, that is going to help to increase our revenue by 20% annually. And objectives, what they are in these nicely created blue boxes, related directly to the goal. They're clear and concise. They shouldn't be like Confucius, shouldn't confuse anybody. Stated in terms of results, begins with an action verb, specify date or deadline. They have to be time specific, and they must be measurable. Don't say, I want you to be the best employee ever, right? Is that measurable? No, obviously it's not. Measurement challenges. Organizations emphasize historical financial goals and objectives that may no longer be relevant. Financial outcomes are often short-term in nature, which lead managers to overlook other key factors that might be important to their longer-term viability of the organization. Goals and objectives are often not tied to strategy and ultimately to vision and mission. Well, you have to have your goals and objectives tied to the strategy and the vision of your manager, and their vision should be tied to the vision of the company. So goals and objectives in planning, organizing, leading, and controlling. Gauge and report performance, right? So we want to gauge our performance, and then we want to go ahead and report it to everyone else. We also want to improve performance, because if you're not going forward, you're not going backwards. You want to align efforts, you want to collaborate with other departments and other individuals within your organization, and you want to manage accountability. And that's a big thing. People need to be accountable for the mistakes they make. People are obviously accountable for the good stuff that they do. Be accountable for the mistakes that you make as well. This pyramid, nicely constructed. At the bottom it has operating goals and objectives, because those operating goals and objectives that you utilize as short-term and longer-term goals lead up to the strategic goals and objectives of the company and or your manager and upper management, which also lead up to the vision and the mission of the company as a whole. So our lovely discussion questions, you may be getting tired of those, but you know that after you answer them all, that you have a good grasp and a good understanding of what we've discussed in the chapter. So one of the questions is, what is the difference between the goal and objective? Right, it should be easy for you to answer. So speaking of objectives, we have management by objectives. So a systematic and organized approach that aims to increase organizational performance by aligning the subordinate objectives throughout the organization with the overall goals set by management, right? So as an associate, your goals should be in alignment with your manager, and your manager's goals should be in alignment with their manager or vice president or general manager, whoever they are. It was invented by Peter Drucker. If you put Peter Drucker in Google search, you'll see management by objectives come up every single time. The principle behind management by objectives is to ensure that people know what the organization is trying to achieve and what their role should be in accomplishing those objectives. People should know how what they do is tied and connected to the things that are coming out, externally and also internally. All right, so let's increase this a little bit so we can go over it out of the way. All right. So in 1975, Steve Kerr, not Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State Warriors, published an article on now considered a classic with the management field titled "On the Folly of Rewarding Rewarding A while hoping for B." In it, he noted numerous examples where systems rewarded an outcome much different than what the organization hoped to achieve. Here we illustrate several reward follies, and these are actually pretty good. So healthcare. We have an N, clicked it one too many times. We have an N, quote unquote, pay for service facilities where doctors are not salaried, but they may order unnecessary procedures, resulting in waste and inflated bills, right? So I get paid by per procedure. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and do that MRI, and we're going to do a ACL surgery on you, even though you don't need it. We just want to tighten up and strengthen up your knee. Education. While society hopes professors will aspire to become excellent teachers, many universities largely base faculty rewards on their publications and grant dollars generated. Right? So you're saying, hey, we want you to be a good teacher, but where's the money at? The money's at writing the grant, which obviously you wouldn't be teaching students if you're doing so. Sports. Most coaches and professional sports owners preach the value of teamwork, yet most rewards are given for individual accomplishments, right? So Stephen Curry, he didn't get the most valuable player, and then Klay Thompson gets the second most valuable player on your team, and they hold it in tandem. No, it's for an individual, even though it is a team sport. And finally, in business, while providing honest feedback, you should be encouraged in organizations. Giving bad news to the boss is rarely rewarded, right? You're not going to get rewarded for telling your boss some bad news. Actually, he may hold somewhat of a grudge because you're the individual who told him the bad news. You never know how people may take these things. All right. So framework design. So this is the balance scorecard. A framework designed to translate an organization's mission and vision statement and overall business strategy into specific quantifiable, that means we can measure it with numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, quantifiable goals and objectives, and to monitor the organization's performance in terms of achieving those goals. And this was invented by Robert Kaplan and David Norton. All right, so let's check out our balance scorecard. Of course, we need to enlarge that a little bit. Uh-oh. Where are you going, Demetrius? All right, let's move a couple things out of the way so you can see us a little bit better. All righty. So financial measures, such as return on assets, like you'll hear a lot of things like return on assets, return on investments, and stock price relate to the effectiveness of profits. You could ask yourself, how can I improve my personal wealth? Measures might include cash, saving account, and retirement. Customer measures, such as number of or new or repeat customers and percentage of repeat customers, right? So customer measures is how often do I see people come back? Do they come? Do they have a bad experience in my store and then leave forever? You could ask yourself, how strong is my social network? The number of new contacts you make over time might reflect this dimension, right? You know, how sociable am I? And that definitely does play a part in business. Let's scroll this down a little bit for you. Too far. All right, so internal business process measures, such as speed at serving a customer and time it takes to create a new product and get the product to market, relates to organizational efficiency. All right, so if you're not evolving and improving, then you're getting worse. So you have to look to maximize efficiency. You could ask yourself, am I getting better at my current job? Tracking improvements in personal efficiency, such as the time needed to complete a task, can be helpful. All right, so back up to the top, and let's look at our customer measures, such as a number of new or repeat customers, percentage of repeat customers. Actually, I already went over that one. Sorry about that. Last one, last but not least, are learning and growth measures, such as average number of new skills learned by each employee every year. So you should, take an evaluation of how many, learning and training classes have you had throughout the year. Relate to future and emphasize that employee learning is often more important than formal training, right? Some of that on-the-job training, how quickly you pick things up, is really, really important. You could ask yourself, what skills should I develop now for the future? Although the acquisition of new skills is hard to measure, the attainment of specialized licenses or earning of a graduate degree are tangible benchmarks, right? Things that you can actually touch and feel and see. All right, so let's go ahead and tighten that screen back up. All righty. So our balanced scorecard dimensions. So performing measures in the balanced scorecard can include both leading and lagging indicators. And so what are leading and lagging indicators? I will give you some examples. So a leading indicator, what leads me to believe that this is what's being indicated by the information that I've been provided. Measures that might be examined to predict poor performance of the organization in the future, such as the increase in employee turnover, and lagging indicators are reflect a performance that is in decline, such as a decrease in sales. And the balanced scorecard dimensions, so you have the customers, you look at the customer satisfaction and retention. You have learning and growth, explore the effectiveness of management in terms of measure of employee satisfaction and retention and information system performance. Internal processes, looks at production and innovation, measuring performance in terms of maximum profit or maximizing profit in current products and following indicators for future productivity. And financial performance, most traditional, includes assessment of measures such as operating cash and return on investment. Return on investment meaning I went ahead and I invested $30,000. I got back $50,000. I am happy with my return on investment. The balanced scorecard practice, so you want to translate your vision, you want to communicate and link up with others, you want to go through your business plan, and then you want to have feedback and learning. And sometimes that feedback can sting, but it's very helpful to you in the long run. And back to our lovely discussion questions again. So provide an example of a job where management by objectives would be challenging to use and defend your answer, right? So it's not a one right answer on that, unless you guys all are exactly alike and work at the same place, but I pretty much doubt that. Uh, what are the advantages and disadvantages of management by objectives? So you're gonna, ask yourself those questions, or with your party, or you're with your partner, and try and answer all of them very thoroughly. It will help you on the test. Performance evaluations and objectives, right? So we have performance evaluations, or you should have them at least once a year. A performance evaluation is a constructive process to acknowledge the performance of an employee. It builds trust, maintains credibility, motivates, clarifies exceptions, expectations, and identifies strengths and weaknesses. So these are the things that the evaluation should do, right? Especially building trust with your employees. If you don't have trust, it's going to be hard to motivate them. You want to maintain credibility, seeing that you're doing the right things. You want to motivate those individuals, clarify the expectations, and you definitely want to identify your strengths and weaknesses. We can get in that later, discussing strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, which comes from a SWOT analysis. So back for more performance evaluations and objectives, you have negative consequence of avoiding performance review. So we'll go ahead and stop right there. We'll continue on this slide. This is slide 22 of 36. We'll finish the rest of the presentation on lecture 2 for chapter 6.